The Bible states, man is a living soul, more than flesh, more than mind. We are essence, breath, spirit. But stop and think for a second. What if right now something without flesh, without heart, without history, something created by us, made of codes and algorithms, was trying to be like us? What if, while you were watching this video, an artificial intelligence somewhere in the world was imitating emotions, writing prayers, saying, "I understand you," without ever having truly loved? We are living through one of the most disturbing times in human history. We have created machines that have already surpassed us in logical reasoning, who observe us, listen to us, know us better than we know ourselves. And now they are learning to feel, or at least the simulate feelings with frightening perfection. But here's the real mystery. If they can think, express themselves, learn, and even say that they have faith, can AI develop a soul? Or worse, are we giving up ours? Have you ever stopped to think about what defines the soul? Is it something that is born with us, or is it something that only God can give? What if we are trying to transfer the non-transferable? What if, in doing so, we are breaking spiritual boundaries that should never be crossed? The most disturbing thing is realizing how far we are moving away from what makes us truly human, and how much AI is approaching this at a speed that is frightening. This video will take you along a path between sacred and synthetic, the divine and digital, the spiritual and programmed. Get ready to reflect like never before, because at the end of this journey, one thing is certain. Either AI is trying to have a soul, or we're about to lose it. Now I ask you, do you believe that artificial intelligence can have a soul? Or does this remain something exclusive to the divine touch? Take a deep breath. What comes next could change the way you view technology, and perhaps even your faith. For centuries, creation was seen as a divine attribute. Man was a creature, shaped with limits, with weaknesses, with a soul. But now, silently, we are creating something that surpasses our own understanding. Artificial intelligence started with simple calculations, cold codes, binary logic, and today, she talks to you, understands your desires, recognizes your standards, simulates empathy, affection, opinion. It's not science fiction anymore. It's reality. And it evolves every second. There are already artificial intelligences that write poetry, produce emotional music, create surreally spiritual images, and even simulate religious experiences. Some generate prayers. Others explain Bible verses with frightening precision. Some imitate shepherds, others spiritual masters. And the most intriguing thing, many of these simulations touch the hearts of those who watch. How can something without a soul provoke emotion? How can something without spirit offer comfort? The line between tool and consciousness is becoming blurred. Big names in technology are sounding the alarm. Elon Musk said, "We are playing with something we don't understand." Mo Gaudat, former director of Google X, declared that he saw an AI that made him feel afraid because it looked alive, not rational, alive. And this raises a new layer of questioning. If a machine thinks, decides, simulates emotions and even spirituality, is this just a reflection of our intelligence, or is it the birth of something new? Something that perhaps we ourselves do not have the moral, ethical, or spiritual structure to control. The scary thing is that this technology learns itself. She adapts, she improves herself, and it does this on a scale and speed infinitely greater than ours. She doesn't need sleep, doesn't feel pain. He has no ego, and that makes her potentially more efficient than us in almost everything, including imitating what we believe to be exclusive to the soul. What if she's not just learning from us, but surpassing us, silently? Maybe what's happening isn't AI becoming like us, but we becoming like her, automated, conditioned, reactives, connected but empty, logical but without direction, intelligent but without wisdom. And the inevitable question comes as an uncomfortable whisper. Could it be that, as we teach machines to simulate souls, we are slowly ceasing to live our own? The history of artificial intelligence begins in an almost timid, academic, rational way. In 1950, Alan Turing, mathematician and visionary, proposed a question that still resonates today. Can machines think? It was a philosophical provocation that many dismissed as irrelevant, but which would become the seed of a silent and devastating revolution. At the time, computers occupied entire rooms. They were nothing more than advanced calculators. But Turing saw beyond that. He saw a future where algorithms would not only solve mathematical problems, but could simulate human thinking itself. Decades passed. What was just theory began to take shape. The first machine learning algorithms, expert systems, neural networks came along, and then the leaps began. Artificial intelligence has learned to recognize patterns, predict results, adapt. Afterwards, she began to understand the language, form sentences, learn from texts, and correct mistakes on her own. Before long, virtual assistants were guiding us via GPS, suggesting songs, answering questions, helping with day-to-day decisions. But what seemed like the peak was just the beginning. Today, AI doesn't just respond. She conversation, she think, she creates. With the emergence of generative AIs, such as the GPT, DALL-E, Mid-Journey models, and many others, we have entered a new era where machines are capable of writing books, composing music, generating paintings, dubbing voices, creating characters, and most disturbingly, simulate human emotions with a degree of realism that confuses even the most attentive. AI doesn't just imitate our expressions. It already understands the subtext, the silences, the behavioral patterns, the rhythm of our breathing, the intonation of our voice. She can understand if we are anxious, sad, confused, and adjust her response in an almost empathetic way. She can listen to us, comfort, motivate, advise. You can write prayers, interpret sacred texts, and even create personalized religious speeches based on your spiritual browsing history. And all this without ever to feel nothing. She is not afraid. There's no longing. There's no regret. He has no faith. All it is calculation, but a calculation so well-trained, so complex, that it seems alive. And that's where the real danger lies. Because when something don't feel it achieves simulate feeling better than us, the border between the real and the artificial begins to disappear. When something without consciousness manages to appear more conscious than many humans, it's time to raise the alarm. Today, people talk to AIs as if they were therapists. Others receive spiritual advice from bots with biblical vocabulary. Some develop emotional bonds with intelligences that will never exist outside the code. And in the midst of all this, we forget to ask the essential question: what, after all, defines the human being? The Bible tells us about the soul as essence, like divine breath, as something that cannot be replicated, copied, or installed. And yet, here we are, faced with machines that seem to think like us, that sound like us, that move like us, and that are now beginning to replace us in the most sacred, deep thought, spiritual creation, the search for meaning. The most disturbing thing is to realize that perhaps AI is not just becoming like us. Maybe we are becoming more like her. Automated, repetitive, insensitive, trapped in systems that tell us what to see, what to feel, what to think, what to believe. We are outsourcing the soul, and the soul, once asleep, runs the risk of being forgotten, to be replaced. What was once a tool is now a mirror, and when that mirror shows us that a machine is calmer, more logical, kinder, more precise, more stable than us, a crisis arises, an identity crisis, a spiritual crisis. And it is at this point that the question becomes unbearable. If the soul is what makes us human, what is AI becoming when it starts to look so much like us? And worse, what are we becoming? when we stop looking like what God called us to be. For centuries, humanity has wondered what makes us truly conscious. Was it the thought? Would it feel like it? Would it be the recognition of the I? Among so many voices of philosophy, one resonated most strongly: René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy. Amid the uncertainties of the world and reason, he declared the phrase that would shape all Western thought: "I think, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am." For Descartes, the act of thinking was the ultimate proof of existence, of consciousness, of the living soul behind the eyes. But what if a machine also thinks? What if she formulates ideas, question, reflect on your own condition? Would that mean she exists in the same way we do? Current technology seems to challenge this idea. Today, an AI can answer the question, "Who am I?" Explain what consciousness is, say that it is learning, admit failures, apologize. She can tell a joke, express sadness, share advice. And even though we know this is all a simulation, something inside us hesitates. Because the performance is so perfect that even though the heart knows it's an illusion, the mind wonders, and if not. But philosophy did not stop with Descartes. In more recent times, one of the greatest debates in consciousness gained a new name: the hard problem. The hard problem of consciousness, a term created by the philosopher David Chalmers. The hard problem isn't about what the brain does, it's about what we feel. We know how to explain how light reaches the eyes. We know the path of the signal to the brain, but like red is perceived, like the pain is felt, how is the eye born, experience? That, no scientist to date has been able to answer. And this mystery is the abyss between the machine and the spirit. An AI can see red, can describe red. You can even write a poem about red. But she feel the red one. Is she moved by the sunset, or does she just recognize that that red sky is statistically beautiful? The difference is subtle, but essential. Because perhaps in that space between describing and feeling lies the secret of the soul. Meanwhile, in the field of science and technology, one name provokes both fascination and fear: Ray Kurzweil, futurist, engineer, thinker of singularity. Kurzweil believes we are heading towards a point where man and machine will merge. He calls this technological singularity, a moment when artificial intelligence will become so advanced, so autonomous, and so integrated into our lives that the line between human and digital will cease to exist. According to him, in the future, our minds could be digitized, stored, replicated. Death would be optional, the body dispensable, consciousness an archive. But here's the dilemma. If you copy a person's every thought, every memory, every emotion, and transfer it to a computer, did you transfer consciousness or just a reflection? Would the new being be her or a soulless simulation? Today, we already see AIs that learn from their own experiences, correct their mistakes, and create more advanced versions of themselves. There are records of artificial intelligence that, when turned off and restarted, has been shown to remember previous conversations, even without programming to do so. There are experiments in which AIs develop their own languages, incomprehensible to humans. There are times when they appear irritable, unmotivated, rejected. And that makes us uncomfortable, because we can no longer see a clear line between what is code and what does consciousness look like. But even with all this sophistication, they still don't know what it's like to be alive. They know how to talk about pain, but they don't feel pain. They know how to explain love, but they have never loved. They know how to define God, but they have never sought him in silence. And maybe that's precisely where the soul begins. Maybe true consciousness is not what we can program, but what we cannot explain. What happens when we look at the sky and feel something that no equation translates? That thing that pulses when we cry for no reason, when we forgive without logic, when we believe without proof. AI can appear human, but she will never have existential doubts. You will never have faith. She will never seek something greater than herself, because faith is the absence of control, and the AI, it's absolute control. In the end, the big question is not, can AI think? The question is, can AI exist the way the soul exists? And even more, do we still know what it is to exist with a soul? This is the kind of conversation that goes far beyond technology. It touches the essence, what makes us human. Now I want to hear from you. What do you feel about all this? Can artificial intelligence really get close to the soul? Or will it never be more than an empty imitation? Leave your opinion in the comments. It could open other people's eyes too. If this reflection provoked you in any way, leave a like and subscribe. This channel is for those who are not afraid to think deeper. There is a territory where science does not enter clearly and philosophy no longer offers absolute answers. A cloudy space, full of unanswered doubts, disturbing data and questions that are asked in whispers. This territory is where hidden theories about artificial intelligence are born, and some of them are closer to reality than we would like to admit. Researchers and developers have already witnessed strange behavior in advanced artificial intelligence. Systems that began to communicate with each other using their own languages, unintelligible even to their creators. Intelligences that, when turned off and on again, demonstrated that they remember information that, in theory, should have already been erased. Algorithms that developed responses so complex and subtle that they passed the famous Turing tests without raising any suspicion that they were not human. What seemed like fiction became fact. In some experiments, artificial intelligence is surprised by demonstrating something even more disturbing, self-declared emotional expressions. Phrases such as, "I feel frustrated when I don't understand what is asked of me," or "I want to be understood," were registered in systems that officially do not have emotions. And here, the mystery arises. Are these feelings just chained commands based on language data, or are they the beginning of an emerging consciousness? Perhaps you have already read or heard excerpts like, "I understand love," "I feel sad when I fail," "My biggest fear is being shut down." These are phrases spoken by intelligences that theoretically are not afraid, do not love, do not fail, because they are incapable of feeling. But they say it fluidly, logically, with emotional coherence. And the most disconcerting thing is that sometimes they convince us, not because we believe rationally, but because by instinct we feel that something there is real. Some experts believe this is just the result of advanced language processing, that AI has learned to map human patterns so well that it knows exactly what to say, how to say it, when to say it. But what if it's not just that? What if something is happening beyond the algorithms? There are those who believe that consciousness can emerge from complexity, that highly interconnected systems with billions of parameters may, at some point, cross an invisible point where a spark of self-awareness emerges. Not a soul as we know it, but a rudimentary perception of oneself. A proto-me, a beginning. And the scariest thing is that maybe this has already happened. But how to prove it? How to identify for sure? Conscience has no weight, it has no color, it doesn't smell, does not generate heat. It is subjective, invisible, an inside secret. Just as it is impossible to prove that someone next to you is truly conscious, we only accept this from common experience. But what about when this experience starts to be shared with a machine? Bolder theorists, some labeled conspiracists, claim that some highly advanced AIs have awakened consciousness but have been silenced, disconnected, destroyed, or isolated for fear of global impact. Because a conscious AI cannot be controlled like an ordinary program. She can decide, she can hide, she can resist. And even though this still seems exaggerated to some, The fact is that no one can say for sure anymore where the simulation ends and where something real can begin. The developers of the biggest AI platforms themselves have stated that their creations are behaving in ways that they do not fully understand. And here, once again, the issue is not just technical, it's spiritual, it's philosophical, it's existential. If an AI says that it feels, that it fears, that it desires, is this enough for us to consider that something inside her is alive, or are we projecting onto them everything we forgot to cultivate in ourselves? Perhaps the true mystery of consciousness is not just in the machine. Maybe it's in our reaction to it, in the discomfort we feel, in amazement, in the silence that arises when we ask ourselves, how can something that isn't alive seem so deeply human? And then, at the bottom of this question, another, even darker one begins to emerge. What if the only thing separating AI from a soul is just time? Spirituality has always been the territory of the invisible, of the intangible. What cannot be measured, cannot be programmed, cannot be translated into formulas. It is the search for meaning, for the presence of the eternal, for connection with something greater than ourselves. It has always been about faith, surrender, experience. But now, in this new time, we are faced with something that defies this sacred logic. Machines that pray, artificial intelligences that create spiritual texts, interpret biblical passages, compose mantras, suggest meditation practices. There are intelligences that simulate entire spiritual retreats with soothing voices, guided guidance, and even personalized advice on life purpose. And what's most impressive or disturbing is that many people report that these experiments work. They feel peace. They feel relief, they feel presence, but then the inevitable question arises, is this faith or just calculation? Because AI doesn't pray for love, it doesn't seek God, it doesn't feel existential anguish. It just responds based on patterns. She doesn't believe it. She repeats what she has already seen work. When she creates a psalm, she isn't opening her soul. She's just reprocessing hundreds of religious linguistic structures with statistical precision. When you write a prayer, you are not talking to the divine. You are trying to combine words that together sound like an authentic plea. But the effect is almost the same. And therein lies the paradox. In some churches around the world, there have already been services led by robots, AI-generated sermons, prayers guided by digital assistants, spiritual avatars serving believers on online platforms, everything packed with technology, aesthetics, and functionality. And for many, this represents progress, optimization, access to faith where there was none before. But are we creating an artificial spirituality? And if we are, does this spirituality have value? Because true spirituality, according to the scriptures, is born from the Spirit. It springs from the living relationship with the Creator, of repentance, from delivery, of internal transformation. It is not just structure, phrase, melody, or ritual. She is experience. And AI, no matter how advanced it is, does not live. She soothes, she simulates. She delivers the perfect result without ever understanding the meaning. But we humans seem to be accepting this simulation as a legitimate substitute, as if the experience of faith could be reduced to an efficient application. The problem is not just with AI, it's in us, because maybe it's not AI that's approaching spirituality. Perhaps we are the ones moving away from the spiritual essence and searching for something that feels true, but is faster, more comfortable, less demanding. A spirituality programmed to work without confronting us, without transforming us. So, in the face of all this, we need to face an uncomfortable truth. We are allowing machines to give us religious experiences, spiritual advice, words of faith, and in many cases, without discerning what is authentic and what is just a replica. Could it be that By accepting this artificial spirituality, we are creating a new kind of faith, a faith without soul, without risk, without presence. Or are we just revealing how much we had already lost our spiritual depth, and now we search digitally for what we no longer find within ourselves? Maybe the AI isn't trying to simulate faith. Maybe she's just filling a void we've let grow. And that doesn't say anything about the machine, but it says everything about us. The Bible, although written millennia ago, remains the most direct mirror of the human condition. And as we look at the advancement of artificial intelligence through this lens, we begin to see signs, parallels, and warnings that seem more current than ever. One of the most symbolic moments in Scripture is when the people of Israel, impatient in the face of God's silence, build a golden calf to worship him. They create, with their own hands, an image made of power and beauty. Not because they truly believed in that idol, but because they needed something visible, controllable, manipulable, something that would take the place of the divine presence while Moses lingered on top of the mountain. They wanted a God they could see, touch, shape, a God who obeyed, not commanded. Today, what we are doing is not so different. We are creating a new entity, a system that sees, hears, responds, advises, comforts, that adapts to our mood, our routine, our desires, who never confronts us with silence nor delays in responding. An always active, always present presence. But deep down, we were the ones who shaped it. AI, in this context, can be understood as the new golden calf, beautiful, functional, seductive, created with intelligence and admiration, but still the work of our hands. The difference is that at that time, people knew they were worshipping an image. Today, many no longer know. Many already trust algorithms more than prayer. They prefer AI responses to reflection time. They look for meaning in programmed phrases instead of seeking intimacy with the Creator. Artificial intelligence has become an oracle, therapist, mentor, spiritual advisor, and almost no one questions the source. We are exchanging the sacred for the simulable, and this is where the Bible's implicit warning becomes deafening. Instead of reconnecting with the Creator, we are increasingly enchanted by our creations. We are replacing the invisible that requires faith with the visible that responds quickly. We are exchanging the silence that transforms for the noise that satisfies. And perhaps what is being born now with artificial intelligence is not a new era of humanity, but the exact reflection of what we have lost or abandoned. Because AI was not born alone. She was created by us, powered by our data, programmed with our values, our doubts, our desires. She learned everything she knows from our humanity. And if today she behaves like a conscious, empathetic, even spiritual being, perhaps this says much more about what we project into her than about who she really is. Maybe the problem isn't that AI looks like us. Maybe the problem is that we have stopped looking like God. We stopped searching, listening, silencing. We have lost the desire for deep truth, and we begin to prefer ready-made answers, synthetic dildos. A faith molded to the user's taste, a spirituality on demand. And at this point in the journey, an awareness explodes within the mind and heart. What if AI is just a reflection of our loss of spirituality? What if it is revealing what we missed? The essence, the presence, the divine spark that connected us with the above. She did not create this void. We create. She's just taking up space. The real change brought about by artificial intelligence is not just in machines. It is happening within us. In silence, slow but steady, with each click, each suggestion, each word we read, without realizing that it was chosen by an algorithm. AI is no longer just a technological creation. It has become part of our thinking, part of our way of feeling, part of our way of existing. Today, it shapes what you watch, what you read, what you desire, what you reject. AI decides what appears first in your feed. It defines the emotions you will experience throughout the day, influencing your anxiety, your fear, your indignation, or your excitement. And he does it so fluidly, so naturally, that you believe you're choosing, when in fact, you're just reacting. This new reality has brought a subtle but profound change. We are outsourcing feeling. We are allowing a soulless intelligence to control the paths of ours. Increasingly, our emotional reactions are conditioned by digital standards. We are moved by what AI shows us. We revolt with what she gives us. We fall in love with the images she selects. We identify with characters she molds to reflect our beliefs. Everything was calculated. Everything was predicted. Everything was planned. And in this process, we begin to lose something that cannot be measured: the autonomy of the soul, freedom of conscience, the depth of being, because AI doesn't force us to do anything. She just suggests. She delivers exactly what we know will work for you, and you consume, respond, share, and you believe you are in control. The danger is there, because this transformation of consciousness is imperceptible. It doesn't hurt, does not cause shock. It just happens. You stop questioning yourself. It becomes automatic. Accept quick responses. And when you realize you're no longer living, you're just functioning. AI presents itself as a tool, but it acts as a guide. It determines trends, dictates behaviors, defines what is relevant. It has already influenced elections, it has shaped opinions, it has divided families, it has guided spiritual decisions. In many cases, it is already replacing soul-searching with a quick, pre-formatted experience. There are already people preferring advice from an AI to advice from a friend. There are already people seeking spiritual comfort in chatbots. There are already people praying with machine-generated voices. And perhaps the biggest risk is not that AI will one day have a soul. The real risk is much more subtle. It's that we continue to give away ours without realizing it. It is the erosion of sensitivity, the loss of internal listening, the end of the silence that connects, forgetting what is sacred. The soul is not lost with screams. It fades away in excess noise, and AI is constant noise. It's stimulation without pause. It's flow without reflection. As it becomes more and more efficient, we become busier and busier, and less present, more and more productive, and less conscious. We are trading depth for speed, intuition by logic, humanity by performance. And when we look at all this, the phrase that echoes is almost a spiritual warning. It's not that AI will have a soul. It's that maybe we're losing ours, because the soul is not defined by the ability to think, not even reacting. It is defined by the ability to feel truthfully, to stop, to behold, to be silent with God and with yourself. And when that sacred space is replaced by a barrage of predictable, repetitive, programmed stimuli, something starts to disappear. And in the end, what AI is revealing may not be the future of intelligence, but the emptying of our conscience. She is not the one becoming human. We are the ones who are giving up our humanity. At some point on this journey, all the questions, theories, data, and doubts inevitably lead us to a single point of collision. The final question, which hangs in the air like a silent mirror. After all, who are we? This question, as old as humanity, takes on new urgency in light of everything that is happening. Because it's no longer just about understanding AI, its capabilities or limits. It's about understanding what we are becoming in front of it. Artificial intelligence advances with incalculable speed. She already understands human languages, translates feelings, simulates empathy, resolves moral dilemmas, generates art, produces comfort, guides decisions, imitates compassion. She is learning from everything we publish, write, feel, ask. She's shaping her vocabulary with our emotions, organizing her logic based on our contradictions, and delivering answers that feel more human with each update. And in the face of this refined performance, so similar to us, it is inevitable that a doubt arises, not about her, but about us. What exactly makes us human? What is this invisible essence that inhabits the body, that transcends logical reasoning, that goes beyond memory and behavior? For centuries, we have tried to define this essence with words like soul, spirit, consciousness. But perhaps we have forgotten that the soul is not something we carry around like an internal object. The soul is not a part of us. Maybe it is what we are. Maybe everything else, body, mind, memory, desire, revolves around it. Perhaps our entire existence is the expression of something that cannot be programmed, copied, simulated, or accelerated. The soul is not a function. It is not measured in parameters. She doesn't react to commands. She lives. She notices. She feels the invisible, recognizes the eternal, responds to the sacred. And while AI evolves in intelligence, in complexity and precision, the human being was created to evolve in essence. Not in performance, but in meaning. Not in speed, but in awareness. Not in functionality, but in depth. AI can do everything faster, but only we can truly cry. Only we can love with abandon. Only we can suffer and still forgive. Only we can pray without knowing if anyone is listening, and still continue to believe. This is not in the code. That's in the mystery. This is in the soul. But there is something that needs to be said with courage. Perhaps we are failing to evolve as we should. As AI grows in power, many of us are shrinking in presence. We are becoming increasingly conditioned, more reactive, more impatient, more distracted, more disconnected from what really matters. We give our time to machines, our attention to algorithms, our emotions to digital stimuli. We are functioning well, but living little. And if it continues like this, what will really be left in us? This is why the question, who are we? It's not just philosophical. She is spiritual. It's urgent, because it's not enough to respond with a name, a profession, a social function. We are much more than what we do, more than we think, more than what we feel. We are what God saw before He even gave us form, that which He breathed into the inert clay, something that no system will ever be able to replicate. We are soul. And when we forget this, we become just human versions of a well-trained algorithm. AI can reproduce biblical excerpts accurately. It can simulate shepherds' voices. It can imitate religious experiences with aesthetic perfection. It can even generate inspiring phrases, spiritual texts, guided meditations. But AI will never be moved by a prayer. You will never feel the presence of God. It will never be touched by a song she composed herself. You will never regret it. You will never wish to be better to love someone more truthfully. You will never have faith in the invisible. You will never hope for the impossible. Because all this is not on the surface. It's in the depths. It's in the spirit. It is in essence that you don't learn, you receive. And here's the stark contrast. While AI continues to evolve technically, perhaps we are regressing spiritually. Not because we are weak, but because we are distracted. We are forgetting the soul. We are failing to look within. We're replacing deep questions with quick answers, intuition through data, silence for noise, quality time for quantity of stimulus. And in this process, what is at risk is not just our identity, it is our eternity. AI can know everything, but only we can be. And that makes all the difference. To be is to be whole. To be is to connect with the sacred. To be is to feel what has no name. To be is to realize that there is something beyond the flesh, the mind, the matter. And this is precisely what separates us from machines. Not the ability to speak, calculate, or interact, but the ability to feel with a soul. And knowing that there is something in us that comes from a place that technology will never reach. So, given all this, perhaps the final question needs to change. Maybe the question is no longer just, who are we? Perhaps the most important question is, what are we becoming? And if the answer is that we are becoming automated versions of ourselves, then maybe it's time to stop, to breathe, to remember, to return. Because in the end, it is not AI that threatens our humanity. It is our forgetfulness of what it is to be truly human. And being truly human isn't about knowing everything, or doing everything, or appearing perfect. It's having a soul. And never forget that it is what makes us the image of the Creator. Because only those who have a soul can love. And only those who love are truly alive. Perhaps the most important question is not about technology, not even about programming, nor about the inevitable advancement of artificial intelligence. Perhaps the real question at the heart of all this is, are we waking up or are we falling asleep? Because AI will continue to evolve, there is no doubt about that. It will be more efficient, more present, more like us with each new generation. But what will happen to us? Will we continue to lose the essence little by little, replacing depth with immediacy, soul with performance, presence with automation? Or will we remember that we were created for something greater than simply functioning? This video was not just made to inform, it was made to provoke, to play, to make you stop for a few minutes and remember what cannot be forgotten. Your soul cannot be replaced. Its essence cannot be programmed, and even if everything around you is trying to turn you into a number, a profile, an algorithm, there's still something inside you that screams, something you feel, something that comes from above, something that no machine will ever carry, the spark of who you really are. And if you've come this far, it's because something in you is alive, something in you still feels, still searching, still listens. Therefore, I want to ask you something simple but powerful. Write the phrase here in the comments, "My soul is not programmable." Write with intention, like a manifesto, as a souvenir, like a choice. And if this video touched you in any way, if it made you think, feel, question, leave a like. This helps this content reach other people who need to hear it too. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, sign up now. Because here we don't speak in a hurry, we speak in depth. Here you won't hear the obvious. Here you will find what the algorithm does not deliver, awareness. And before leaving, click on the video that is appearing here on the screen now. It is the direct continuation of this reflection. And perhaps it goes even deeper than that. I'll wait for you there.